Call to order the Avon Town Council meeting for December 15th, 2022. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Julie, would you mind taking a roll call, please?
Greg Zuzen.
Present.
Don Loudon.
Present.
Robert Pope.
Present.
Steve Eisenbarth.
Present.
And Aaron Tevabaugh.
Present.
Last meeting of the year. First item on the agenda, consent agenda to include the check register, memorandum for executive session for December 1, and a work session memorandum for December 1 as well. Any discussion or a motion?
I'll make a motion that we accept.
We have a first.
Second.
We have a first and second. Julie, roll call vote, please.
Aaron Tevabaugh.
4.
Steve Eisenbarth.
4.
Don Loudon.
4.
Greg Zuzen.
4.
Robert Pope.
4. Next item on the agenda is the Internal Controls Annual Report. Ryan, are you speaking to that one?
We don't need to speak to them. We're just required to turn them into you. If you guys want some kind of explanation, I'm happy to provide them, but it's not required.
Forgive me.
Yeah, it's all.
That should have been included in the consent agenda, and I'm seeing that. So, after the fact, are we able to ensure that, Dan, I think this is a question for you, are we able to include that in that consent agenda as long as it's written on our agenda, even though I didn't state it? Okay. For the record, for anyone watching, the Internal Controls Annual Report, Risk Management Annual Report, and our ADA Annual Report were included in that. Next item on the agenda is the first of 2 public comment opportunities. You may comment on items on the agenda that are not a public hearing or on a specific matter in the council's agenda. Please come forward to the microphone, state your name and address, and limit your time to 3 minutes. Seeing no one come forward, we'll close that session of public comment, move on to council comment and liaison reports. We'll start with you, Ms. Loudon.
Oh, golly. Hope I don't cry. No. Aaron, we're going to miss you. It's been an awesome opportunity to get to know you these last 4 years, and you've been a good mentor, and I appreciate your long service to the town, and I wish you a happy retirement from government service. I know you're not retiring overall, but go have some fun on Thursday evenings for the rest of us. And that's all. I guess that's all I've got to say.
Mr. Tevabaugh.
Yeah, well, the Parks Board actually met this week, and there was some exciting news about some up and coming projects that they're looking at for Summerlock. So a lot of different options. So yeah, really, really interesting. They were very excited. And so the concepts were presented and a lot of good comments, a lot of good discussion around that. So that'll be a really exciting project for the future. And this is it. Really excited to see where this place has come over the past several years, and so appreciative not only to be here, but to be a part, to work with this great staff that we have and to see everything that was accomplished. And it wasn't easy. A lot of years, spent doing a lot of hard work, a lot of time, and bumps in the road. But we got here, and I'm excited and know that everything's in good hands. Hope my replacement knows how good he's got it with this staff and this group up here, and very excited to pass the torch here at the end of the night. So thank you, everybody, for a great run. Learned a ton from all of you, and I feel like I'm a completely different person today than the first time I sat in one of these chairs. So, and that's a tribute to each and every one of you. So thank you.
Mr. Zuzen.
Couple of things. I attended the Chamber Holiday Open House on the 2nd and the 3rd. I wasn't here for the tree lighting, but I want to applaud the Parks Department and Shelby and her staff for doing a great job. I was reminded I wasn't here when the fireworks went off. I'm like, oh, shoot. So, good job there. I attended the Hendricks County Economic Development Partnership Holiday Reception. Was at the Chamber Board meeting last Friday. And then today I attended the Township Board meeting and made some notations. They approved the purchase of the real estate on Governor's Row. There was a item of interest on our agenda tonight that they commented on regarding the purchase of real estate. And then they approved a joint financial study with the town. They called it an interlocal cooperation. So I don't know what that is, but those are a couple of highlights that they had there. So Aaron, congratulations. You're smarter than me. We've been on this council for, 8 years together? And we've had some highs and we've had some lows. And I think we grew up because of that. And then certainly in the last 4 years, it's been the best 4 years here on this town council. We've really come together with your guidance and your leadership, and certainly bringing in the Westfall Leadership Program, I think is a benefit for all of our employees and staff. And because of that, you're right, you're going to leave it in a better place. So congratulations.
Mr. Eisenbarth.
Well, I think I'll start with Aaron too, is that, really appreciate it. I think you and I remember when we met for dinner, was it Charbonne's we met that first time? We met in 2015 or thereabouts before. And what it was is I was thinking about running and he was running too. And I said, well, man, he seems like a pretty nice guy. I think I'll just back out. And I did. And it was I'm so grateful that you've been involved. It's been fun and it's been great. And you've been a personal best with me, just kind of help on the council and your leadership skills. Yes, for the town and just for everybody, it's been good. So we really appreciate it. And we really are going to miss you. But we know you're going to be around because we're going to pull you in. I met this week with one of the county commissioners, and it's kind of good to talk about and hear how they have some of the same things we have. They're looking at building space needs and trying to see how they're going to chart that forward. So that's one of the items. And then also they were, I don't want to get into all the things, but one thing that we were sharing about the fire departments here and over there, they have a volunteer and they're looking to go to a paid service. And so then they're trying to weigh, and some of the things we look at weighing things too, is local control, like a fire territory versus a county control over a fire district. And so they're tugging on that, trying to think through how that would go. And we talked a number of different topics, but it was refreshing. I was glad to hear that they, all three of them do meet by phone. They do a phone call to the surrounding counties, and they touch base and just find out what's going on. And I was sharing how we communicate, and this particular person wasn't aware of Easton Gray, and I go, oh, well, let me tell you a little bit about it, about our new town center coming on there. And so I guess we should all just remember, we don't know what people don't know, and it's just fun to just share. Here's our part of life, and we want to hear about your part of life too. And it was a good time. So that's the main thing. And I'm sorry I was gone for a couple of weeks. It just happened to hit where I missed 2 meetings. And sure enough, while I was gone towards the end of that thing, I started writing down ideas for the town. I know that's crazy, but I did. I didn't do anything about work, but I did for the town. And that's what made me want to meet with the county, and I'm glad I did. So time of rest, if y'all haven't had it or you're getting ready to go into a season of it, I highly recommend it. So I wish everyone well on that. That's all.
Thanks, Steve. Reiterate what Greg said about the Christmas tree lighting event. You guys did a great job. To everyone here, everyone watching at home, please have a happy and safe holiday season. To Aaron, man, I had to write my thoughts down and make sure I thank you for more than a decade of service to our community. I appreciate it not only as a fellow council member, but as a resident. as a council member, I can truly understand that it is quite challenging to find people with their head and heart in the right place, and you certainly are one of those people. I feel we will carry on, but I feel we will be less without you. I hope whatever adventure is next for you is only the prelude to the adventure after that. So thank you and congratulations on a well-deserved break. That's all I got. Next, moving on, next item on the agenda, new business trail design contract for County Road 625 East to White Lick Creek Trail. I assume you're speaking to this one, Ryan.
Yes, I will. This was actually, you guys will probably be aware of this anyway, but the town built the White Lick Creek Trail along White Lick Creek over by the Avon Junior Athletic Association. The township, when they built Murphy Park, there's a pedestrian crossing there on County Road 625 East. So it was always in the town's master plan to have a trail connection, basically from that pedestrian crossing back to our White Lick Creek Trail and making that connection. So it just so happens actually that we also have some drainage issues there. So Steve has actually been working with Banning Engineering to address some of the drainage issues. So it made sense for us to kind of partner together those two things, the drainage work we're doing, to also do the trail design piece. So we reached out to Banning Engineer and asked for a proposal basically to design that trail for us. And so that is attached in your contract or as a copy of their contract to basically design that section. The cost for the design is $56,480. We would pay for the design work from the Recreation Impact Fee Fund. And again, it is Banning Engineering. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Dan's reviewed the contract.
Yes.
Any other questions for staff?
Will, since part of this is on the property that's Murphy Aquatic Park, will the township be contributing to their portion or any portion of the process?
No, everything we're doing is on the west side of 625 East. So it's all of it will actually be on the AJA's property. So there is potential we'll have to acquire some property from AJA, and we've been in communication with them, and we'll continue to be in communication with them as we do the trail design. But no, none of it's on the township property.
Okay.
You indicated the price was $56,480.
That's correct.
You've got this optional service in there of $22,500. We're not considering that.
I'm not considering that at this time. It may be something we'll revisit later, but typically the bidding services we're capable of handling ourselves in-house. So I think we can probably handle that. Inspection may be something that we'll do, but again, as we get closer to actually doing the construction of the project, we can always revisit that if we think. At this time, I'm not looking for approval for that.
You can work this.
It's technically a Parks Department project, but the Public Works staff may be able to help out. Again, it's trail construction, so it's not as complicated as, major road construction projects. So it may be something we can handle in-house depending on what our workload is at the time. Or if we have to get someone, again, we can always come back and ask the council for additional funds.
And Ryan, on the coordination with AJA that's mentioned in here a couple of times, what would you expect to be that type of coordination? I understand that just communication, but is there anything when it says drainage accommodations, anything to speak to that?
Yeah, and that's what I think they've already walked the project with AJA because there could be, we don't want to cause any damage, flooding or any issues to the AJA sports fields. And so that's what we'll have some coordination there just to make sure we don't create any issues. Obviously, we'll share the preliminary design and the layout where the trail will be and make sure AJA, it is going to be on their property. So we'll have to coordinate that with them. So again, we'll approach them as a partner and just communicate with them about what's going on.
Sounds good. Thanks.
One last comment. That's a traffic pattern there too, egress, ingress. So is that going to go away once this trail's in there, or is it going to be next to where because
AJA is not using it anymore as an ingress egress. I know they kind of back in the old days, they used to do that, but they're not doing that anymore. There's
So
actually a
how-
pretty substantial drop off there. So we don't want them doing that anymore. They haven't been doing that for a few years. We changed the elevation of that road when we reconstructed it, and it made it
are
difficult.
we going to
for
put a
ways.
sign up then, no motor vehicles or what? Or because I'm assuming somebody's going to drive down that.
Right, yeah. Yeah, and we'll probably do bollards, which is typical of what we do in our trail designs. Keep vehicles from driving back there.
So is this part of that crosswalk situation that we have going on?
It's not part of the crosswalk, it's just from the crosswalk over to the White Lake Creek Trail. So it doesn't really have anything to do with the crosswalk itself, but
Is that why they took down, I don't know what the proper word is, of their crosswalk, where they had that safety barrier in between getting from Murphy Park over to the AJA fields? They've taken that down?
well, they took that down based on the fact that I think our staff felt that the design was unsafe. And so we've been working with the township to kind of come up with an alternative design that's safer. Quite a few cars were hitting it, which was the concern. It wasn't designed actually in a way that it probably should have been. So again, we're trying to work through those issues with the township to address it. And there'll be something going back that will still maintain a pedestrian crossing, but it won't look the way it looked previously.
But this estimate does not include anything to do with the crosswalk. Okay.
Does not.
Looks like no further questions. Would anyone like to entertain a motion? Make a motion, pardon me.
I'll make a motion that we approve the, for Banning Engineering to proceed with design on this walkway and paths in the amount of $5,680 for the trail design along County Road 625 at White Lake Creek.
We have a first.
Is that dollar amount? That's, yes, the total. Okay. I'll second that.
We have a first and a second. Julie, would you mind taking a roll call vote, please?
John Loudon,
4.
Steve Eisenbarth,
4.
Robert Pope,
4.
Greg Zuzen,
For,
Aaron Teveba.
4.
Next item on the agenda, proposal to update bike and ped master plan. I assume you're speaking of this one as well, Ryan?
I will, yeah. I think Jared's going to pull up an exhibit. If not, I've got an example of the bike and ped master plan. But the town has actually had a bike and ped master plan since 2007. Prior to that, we had a sidewalk and trail master plan. So for about 22 years, we've had a plan basically of developing trails and sidewalks in our community. This one that's up in front of you right now, we did in 2010, and it was done by R.W. Armstrong, which was now purchased by CHA. So you'll notice the proposal that's in front of you today to update it is CHA. So it's basically the same company doing the next iteration of that plan. A couple of things you'll notice here, this bike and ped master plan that we did actually established that we want a trail on one side of the street and we want a sidewalk on the other. And that's basically to accommodate all the different modes of transportation. You may have people walking on trails, but you want recreation facilities in a trail that would allow people to ride bikes, rollerblade, use skateboards, whatever you want. And so we're trying to accommodate all the different modes of transportation. So the map up here that we have specifically locates where those trails will be, on what side of the road it'll actually be on. And so it's a really important planning document. It's also what we use. It's actually, once it's adopted, it'll get adopted as part of the comprehensive plan. So a new development comes along, we actually require them to comply with this. So if there shows a trail along County Road 100 North, the developer actually is required to build that trail along 100 North. So this document's really important. This planning document itself won't change substantially. The two things that we'll do, if you guys kind of notice in the northwest quadrant and the southwest quadrant, we didn't plan. So back in 2010, the town limits didn't extend to those areas. So we want to do some planning for those areas. So we'll show some extensions of some trails and out to those areas eventually. Certainly Gibbs Park is now out there. You'll kind of notice the green piece in the corner is Gibbs Park. And so we'd like to make some pedestrian connections from the White Lake Creek Trail over to Gibbs Park. So there will be some slight enhancements to this. The overall piece of it probably won't change much. Again, color is a little difficult to see, but you'll also notice on Dan Jones to 200 North down Avon Avenue and across 150 is kind of like a blue line. And then you'll also notice on Dan Jones over 100 to 625, or actually over to White Lake Creek, all the way down to White Lake Creek and across 100 South is a yellow color. When we did this, we created 2 priority routes. And so those were the 2 priority routes. So the town prioritized where we wanted to do trails and sidewalk improvements based on those priority routes. Our goal was to connect schools, churches, commercial areas, but we also wanted to create loops that would actually give people the opportunity. So for the last 10 years, we've been working basically off of that, but we've kind of worked our way through all of those projects. We've just about got all of them done on those 2 priority loops, other than areas that are substantially outside of our corporate limits. And so some of those areas we haven't invested heavily in trails and sidewalks because they don't benefit our residents. So again, we'd like to revisit that, reprioritize, and then develop a new 10-year plan to say for the next 10 years, here's where we want to continue investing, filling those gaps, and creating that connectivity opportunities. So again, this is, we also want, this is kind of stagnant, so we want to update this, but then we also want to show everybody the progress. So now with new technology, we'll be able to show, here's the projects we've done, here's the connections we've made, and basically identify where we want to do it. And kind of, again, kind of have that planning level, but also have it down to an implementation level as well, so that we can actually identify projects and kind of continue working. So again, CHA is proposed to do this. We actually budgeted for this last year. And so we encumbered money from last year's budget to actually pay CHA to do this. With our transition in parks directors, we weren't able to get to it. And so now that Shelby's in place, we've kind of been able to work our way to get the proposal and get it to the whole town council. So we do have some 2021 money actually that can go towards it. And then there'll be a little bit of 2022 money that we'll have to supplement as well to pay for this, but we will pay for that from food and beverage funds. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Ryan, as we were talking earlier about the electronic copy, item G they have on their deliverable, they just have one digital PDF format. It would be nice during your discussions with them if you could have them have the layers, you know, since the technology is there and like you're describing all the things that have been accomplished. That makes it so much more helpful. And then when we have it, when Jared puts it on the web, people can have, you know, the PDF easy version. Then if they want to look at the layers, they can turn on those. It would be nice to have that. It's not just nice, it's very helpful for planning purposes. So.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I think that was the intention, Steve. And if it didn't show that in the deliverable, you'll notice throughout the scope, it talks about that they'll create GIS layers for this. And that's absolutely what we want. We want to be able to put it on our website. We want to maintain it in our GIS system as well.
Okay. Yeah,
Yes, that's the intention.
okay. Sounds good.
Any other questions for staff? If not, would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. Yes, that we accept the proposal for services from CHA Consulting. And I guess I don't need to say the amount, just as presented.
So
We have a first and a second. Julie, would you take a roll call vote, please?
Aaron Teveball,
4.
Steve Eisenbarth,
4.
Robert Pope,
4.
Don Loudon,
4.
Greg Zuzen.
4.
Next item on the agenda, Resolution 2022-27, transfer money to rainy day fund.
Yeah, I'll handle this, but Julie may jump in as well. The town council, in our budget discussions, Greg Garitas had made a recommendation to us for us to try to grow our rainy day fund. And so I think the council had said that they were interested in trying to do that. So in order for you guys to do that, you need to pass a resolution authorizing that to happen. I know we've talked a lot about money that we've underspent out of this year's budget. And I know you guys have your reappropriations ordinance in front of you. And so we know where we're at now. It doesn't necessarily show in your report, but we underspent this year's budget by about $140,000. The police department has about $40,000 of purchase orders that they need to do for equipment that they've already committed to purchasing. So we've underspent this year's budget by about $100,000. I put a placeholder in your resolution. It says 150,000, but it can be whatever number that you guys want it to be. I guess the other thing I want to qualify is what you transfer doesn't have to be what we underspent. When you're doing the transfer, if you read the resolution, you're transferring it from the general fund to the rainy day fund. So we have a fund balance in the general fund. So if you approve something greater than $100,000, it would just reduce the fund balance in the general fund. And I know Julie just got our revenue numbers, our December distributions. It's just shown as a lump sum. And so Julie and I kind of looked at it really quick, and we think our revenue may be substantially higher than what we projected. I don't want to weigh in what substantially is because if you guys recall, you get one number, but it breaks out into like 12 different funds. And so Julie doesn't have that breakout into 12 different funds yet. So we're not sure how that distributes across all the different funds. But we do believe we're going to have something greater than what we actually projected for our revenue. So I plugged in 150 into your ordinance. And again, I think Julie and I would be comfortable with that number, as well as Greg Garatos, if you guys want to do it. If you want it to be something less, you can do that. If you want it to be something more, you can do that as well. I would just remind you that the way the budget works is what's in your fund balance then helps you determine, because your budget is an 18-month budget, not a 12-month budget. So what you have in your fund balance then helps control your budget. So we want to be a little bit careful. If you deprive that, you'll actually create a situation where we may not be able to grow the budget as much next year to meet whatever needs we have. So I would just caution you to keep that in mind if you want to do too large of a number, but it is at your guys' discretion, and Julie and I are happy to answer any questions you guys have.
My question is, it sounds like you're not fully comfortable or understand that report yet. So why are we acting on it as a resolution now when I see in within here, we can do this up to March 30th of 23? Is there statutorily, is that why we're doing it, or end of the year, or can we table it and wait till you feel comfortable with the right number?
You guys can do whatever. You can do it at any time. So if you guys recall, last year, you guys did a transfer of an extra distribution. You guys did it in June. You can make this choice whenever you want to make it. I put it on the agenda because this council had said that was the direction they wanted to do. So I wanted to give you guys the opportunity to do it for the end of the year, if that's what you want to do. But there is no urgency to you doing it. If you want to wait until Julie's had the opportunity to digest those numbers, there'd be nothing wrong with that.
Just so you know, so we got the bulk number this week. We'll get the breakout numbers next week. So if you wanted to table it to the first meeting in January, you could. We're only projected, I think we budgeted, we thought we'd get in about 1.2 for general property tax. With our number, it looks like it's about the same as the June distribution, which would have put us at 1.4 in just that one general line. So it does get broken out into the four something, I don't know if you have that, gets broken out into 12 different lines, including our TIF. But it looks like our general property tax line, which is where this money would come from, could be about 1.4 in just that line. That's why, and again, you guys wanted this, so.
You feel confident.
But you can table it, like he said, you can table it, you can do whatever you want until we have that exact number next week.
The advantage, though, of doing something at this time is the way the state board, the DLGF looks at your 18-month budget is they assume that you will spend everything that's been appropriated unless there is a reduction or transfer. If you have money unspent and you don't do a reduction or transfer, they assume you've spent that, which means that if you don't spend it, you're going to get less money in you're going to get less money in your next budget, the 24 budget I'm talking about. You're going to get less money because of this unspent money. A lot of financial advisors for municipalities tell you that a rainy day transfer in December is a great idea because it allows you to avoid that issue alone, because literally you are transferring it out of general to rainy day. And the rainy day fund as a special sort of place, they encourage that. It's probably good fiscal management. So if you transfer it to that fund, then basically if you do that for $150,000, the state in your 2024 will let you raise another $150,000 that you wouldn't if you don't do it before the end of the year. So there's a little trick to this because of the way the DLGF treats budgeted money. And so that's why there's this tendency to have governments, several do, they make what they're comfortable with in December so they can avoid that, basically the loss of levy power. And so that's one advantage of the transfer. I think if your financial officers feel comfortable with that number, that's why you see governments doing these transfers in December. If you wait, then you can only impact your 25 budget. you're going to miss the opportunity to impact your 24 in a positive way.
Well, based on that speech, Mr. Taylor, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-27, authorizing transfer to the rainy day fund as presented.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Julie, would you take a roll call vote, please?
Greg Zuzen,
For,
Don Loudon,
4.
Robert Pope,
4.
Aaron Teveba,
Form.
and Steve Eisenbarth.
4.
Next item on the agenda, Resolution 2022-28, resolution of interest.
Yes, we've had some discussions at a work session about a piece of property on Dean Jones Road as a possible opportunity for acquisition for some park property. In order for staff to proceed forward with that, the town council actually has to pass a resolution of interest. And so I have that resolution of interest on your agenda. It does authorize staff to move forward doing appraisals and negotiating with the property owner if we're interested in doing that. And so I'm happy to answer any questions if you guys have them.
This is just the first step. It won't be actually purchasing it. You can't go off and actually purchase this property. It's just to do the due diligence that we might want to see in order to make that decision.
Correct. I think the resolution is pretty flexible. It says we could do that, but we have several properties out there that we have resolution of interests on. So I wouldn't do that without having further discussions with the town council first. So yes, I'm basically asking to move forward with appraisals at this point.
Looking at exhibit, it makes sense. Yeah.
well, I think it makes sense. I mean, we've talked about this and, the only resource we have is land and it's going away rather quickly. And so this property is currently being used, was it Southside United or whoever, as their soccer fields and this, if the price is right, could be certainly a good addition to our Parks Department and for our recreation facilities, because we've got a lot of passive parks. This would be a good active park. So.
The only thing that I would say is that, we're talking about it's 16 acres and we've already had 2 developers come to us and want to develop on that property to only walk away saying that they're, one, they couldn't come to an agreement with the existing church for a right in, right out, or to a shared driveway. And I think with the way that the soccer fields were handled in the past, Greg, maybe the church was letting them use that church parking for that. But I don't know how on 16 acres of land, by the time if the town's going to own it, I don't know that the town can use the church's property. I don't know how we get enough parking there for all the parents and grandparents to come and still have enough room for soccer fields, because that was the problem right there with the developers. And also this particular piece of property, I think they're asking around $640,000 for 16 acres. And I just don't know that I just think we could buy more property for our sports fields and maybe, combine some of the sporting, not just soccer, but have our baseball and different things, combine it into a bigger parcel that would be less expensive than that particular parcel is per square or per
We can only
acre.
pay the average of 2 appraisals.
Right.
So they may want more, but we can only pay the average, so. And the concern is every day there's a developer looking for infill sites. This is an infill site, 10 acres here, boom, it's gone. I mean, I don't think I'm not aware of any location in the town of Avon that we can go out and acquire that is going to take care of all of our issues. Partner with AJAA or partner with Westside United or partner with Tom Geezy and his group soccer fields. I think this might be an opportunity where it doubles as a football field, a soccer field, a lacrosse field, and maybe take a section of it. But you're right. I mean, I think part of the conversation is we do have to have with the churches, can we use your parking area? And, but this is just a preliminary step, and we can't get to those conversations unless we take care of the initial step.
And what's the cost of an appraisal, commercial appraisal?
I haven't gotten prices, but typically somewhere between $1,500 to $2,000, probably somewhere in that range. I will say in this circumstance, the property owner has said they would be willing to pay for one of the appraisals. So they would pay for one, we'd pay for one, which is not normal. Normally we pay for both. So there is some cost savings if the property owner is willing to at least pay for that one appraisal.
Earlier this year, we passed a number of resolutions for interest. I don't know how comfortable I am throwing another, I used this term earlier, throwing another juggling ball in the air with this. Can you speak to where we are with those other properties?
Yeah, a couple of the properties, two of them were actually school property. If you guys recall, the school actually, they're going through their long-range plan. And so they said at this point in time, they weren't willing to consider those. Now, they had given me a November deadline, but if you guys all know, Dr. Wyndham, I think just announced that maybe yesterday afternoon, that they have some plans. So that may be a discussion we can kind of rehash with them. That was two of the properties. Two of the other properties were properties that were out in the northwest area. And there were properties we were talking about purchasing to swap with the school for some of their other properties, that then they'd have some land that was further out that then they could develop, and then the town could have the property that we thought would have been good for a park. So I haven't made any progress. I think there was one other one, which was just north of the Burnett Park property on 100 South and Dan Jones. It was a house that we were doing some acquisition from them for right-of-way, and so we had thrown out potentially acquiring that and adding it to the Burnett Park. Property owner came back and wanted an exorbitant amount of money and for us to buy him a new house and do all this other stuff. So we said we're not interested, and we haven't spent any money doing any appraisals for any of those properties at this point. We've just been having discussions really until the school, breaks free and we can have some substantive discussions with them. There's really no progress to be made on those.
So it's safe to say we're 0 for 4.
So far, I'm hoping we're not 0 for 4, but so far we are, yes.
Any further discussion? If not, entertain a motion here.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-28 expressing interest in the purchase of real estate as presented.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Julie, would you mind taking a roll call, please? Roll call vote, please.
Greg Susan,
4.
Don Loudon,
4.
Robert Pope,
4.
Aaron Teveba,
Form.
Steve Eisenbarth.
4.
Next item on the agenda, Resolution 2022-29, authorization to acquire right-of-way for Hurst Drive.
Yeah, this is a problem we ran into when we were doing the Avon Heights Phase 3 drainage design project. If you guys are familiar with Hurst Drive, it's actually the first road just east of Avon Avenue. It's a little stub that goes north. It runs right next to the church there. And what we found was we run our drainage discharge along the street out to the 36 right-of-way. But what we found out was they never actually dedicated the right-of-way. So when they platted the subdivision, they did, but the street, they'd never platted the right-of-way. But the roads underneath the property, this neighborhood was actually, it was platted in the 60s and the 70s. So it's not something that, was happened recently. It was probably something that has slipped through the cracks, before the town was even a town. But in order for us to move forward and to get that discharge, one, someone has to have responsibility for the maintenance of the street. And so we'd like to accept that responsibility, as well as in order for us to have that drainage discharge to actually improve the conditions in the neighborhood. In particular, if you guys aren't familiar with Avon Heights, they're on well and septic. And so they've long had bad drainage issues, which cause standing water on their properties. And in order for us to get the water away from their properties, they have to get their septic systems pumped on occasion. So these have kind of been long time drainage improvements that are necessary. So we'd like to acquire that right of way. And so this resolution would authorize staff to move forward. We've done the appraisals already. And so we're asking for authorization to make an offer and to acquire the properties. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for
My only
staff?
question is the right of way on both sides of the road, or it looks like, is it just on the west side, which is the former Faith Baptist Church side?
It's on both sides. So it actually, the road is in the middle of the parcel. It's very unusual.
So there's a house at the north end, northeast end, then how is that going to be affected by this? Because it appears to be pretty close to the road.
Are you talking about like right at the intersection?
Well, on your map, it shows it's got an arrow, so shows subject.
Yeah, I mean, we won't impact the house, so we're only buying the right of way that encompasses the road. So we won't impact the house. The
Okay,
house
so
is
we're
a
not
separate
going
parcel.
onto their, we're just taking the road itself, not any other property.
Correct,
Okay,
right. Correct.
okay.
Yeah, and it's the same property owner owns both pieces, the north and the south.
I think anytime we can fix drainage issues, it's a no-brainer, right? As long as it's in the budget, let's do it.
Here, no further questions. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, Resolution 2022-29, authorizing acquisition of right-of-way for Hearst Drive, that we give a favorable one. We proceed with it.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Julie, a roll call vote, please.
Aaron Teveba,
4.
Robert Pope,
4.
Don Loudon,
4.
Greg Zuzen,
4,
Steve Eisenbarth,
4.
Next item on the agenda, excuse me, Resolution 2022-30, declaring an economic revitalization area for Radial. Mr. Taylor.
Good evening, Mr. Bilzer. Would you like to come up? This is for a personal property tax amendment for the first tenant on 100 South. This is Radial, which is a kind of a third-party user. It takes 740,000 of the 880,000 square foot building. I've asked Brian to be here. The person in charge of this project is out of Atlanta. We did not ask them to come tonight, so he has all the information about the project itself. But if you would like that person to be here for the other meeting, when we have the confirmatory resolution, we will ask them to come up to Indianapolis and come out to Avon and be a part of it. So, Brian, would you like to come up and answer any questions that you have?
No, I talked with John. I didn't want somebody to fly up to Indy from Atlanta nowadays season for this, but if you need them for the next meeting, they'll be more than happy to be here. This is the first, this is the personal property tax. This is an e-commerce facility. We're starting to see those, some things are down and are we into recession? The thing that developers are saying is e-commerce is continue to grow. COVID cast everything, and we're pretty good at that. We're also starting to see more of a value add in the e-commerce, a different manufacturing component to it as well. So this is a project we started in June, July.
So,
Absolutely. So
my question, what is the dollar amount we're talking about here?
if we are talking, it's a 5-year, 50% tax abatement.
So is it
Sure.
$1,031,025?
That will be their savings, yes.
That's, okay. So, and then they would pay us half of that then, or?
No, whatever you're seeing their savings, that's what you'll receive. So
Okay.
it's 50% of that.
And I think the good news is they can usually on personal property go up to 10 years.
Right.
So this is 5 years.
That's all they asked for, so I shut up at that point.
Fine, I appreciate that.
see if they've been talking to me.
Well, I know. My only other question is, do we have clawback language in here? If they go out of business, they don't meet their agreement of jobs and things of that nature, can we get our money back?
We can certainly put clawback provisions. The only time I've ever seen a clawback provision is when a company goes belly up. Once they're out of business and bankrupt, it's kind of hard, but we could put something in there.
Well, that's true, but I don't know. What do you think, Mr. Taylor?
Generally, you see a callback where we're providing a direct incentive to them, cash for a startup, not on a tax abatement, because if they don't go well and don't produce the tax money, they'll be out of business. Tax abatement, we're going to get their money if they're successful. That's the only way we get it. And so if we had an incentive clause, it's been our practice to include clawback there, but not on this.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Greg, and I may answer your question. It's actually on page 11 of 11. It's the the top one, it says B, projected conditions with abatement. And so the projected 5-year real property taxes is $1,031,025. The projected 5-year abatement is $598,183. And then right underneath it, it has taxes to be paid, $1,056,888.
But this is something we're going to see with manufacturing. All these big buildings, we're going to have companies coming in to get personal property tax abatements.
No further questions. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve Resolution 2022-30, a resolution of the Avon Town Council declaring an economic revitalization area as presented.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Julie, would you mind taking a roll call, please?
Don Loudon,
4.
Greg Zuzen,
Four.
Aaron Teveba,
Form.
Steve Eisenbarth,
4.
Robert Pope.
4.
Thank you.
All right, that's your last vote. Correct, no.
Good work.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Yeah, thanks.
Next item on the agenda, ordinance, final reading ordinance 2022-36, elimination of town court.
Yes, this ordinance would abolish the town court effective December 31st, 2023. It would also make conforming changes to the several provisions of your town code which relate to the courts. As you know, every 4 years, you have a window where you can look at this issue and you can create courts and abolish them only in those 4-year windows. And so if the town council desires to abolish the court, must be done between now and December 31st. If you don't want to abolish the town court, then you take no action and you get to look at it again 4 years from now. Be happy to answer any questions. This is final reading.
Any questions for staff? Any comments?
I looked at the numbers over the, those spreadsheets that we've had over the years and about the number of filings and just the other numbers supporting it. And, it's regretful that we do this, but it's dollars and cents. And I think it's responsible for us to look at this. And I've also talked to the county about would this be a negative impact to them. As usual, this is the commission I talked to.
I know before I came on the council, I know this was something that was discussed again 4 years ago. And I know it was a desire, if you will, at that time. Since my time on here, I know this is something that we've discussed. And I think the important issue that really boils up for me is, as Steve is saying, it's sort of the fiscal responsibility of this, is the value of the service that the court is providing to our taxpayers. Is it worth the money that we're spending? We're want them to be profitable. That's not the goal, but to try to manage that loss is, I think, what our primary goal is here. My opinion, I just don't see that the value to our residents is worth the money that we're spending on that.
I made several calls to several people and trying to work my mind around what the right decision is here. And, Steve, I know you said you spoke with a commissioner, and, I didn't speak with the commissioner, but I spoke with others, and I didn't realize that they were actually sending a deputy prosecutor here for some of the hearings that have to take place here. And I think when we look at like our collaboration meetings with the township and things that we've tried to do this year and being a more efficient and more cost-effective government, that this happens to be one area where it's a duplicative service that we're providing, because the county already has its courts, the county already has the personnel. If caseload were to increase, they've got the people to cover it. They can react more quickly than we can because we have budget constraints. It's almost like the residents that live in the town of Avon their tax dollars are going towards the Avon town court, but yet they're also paying for the county courts. So they're kind of getting the double hit on it. And I know that we've talked about it 4 years ago and almost made the decision at that time to close the court. And here we are again talking about it. And we've not fixed the fiscal deficit. For me, in my mind, especially since I know that the service is still able to be carried on at a different location.
Any further comments? If not,
Well, I'll give you my feedback. You know, when this all started, I think there were two things. It was hearsay about attitudes, responsibilities, getting along, and the fiscal impact. And so, you know, being a banker, I looked at it initially and said, okay, you're in the red, you're losing money. But I took it upon myself to go and talk to the chief and the two deputy chiefs. I talked to the county prosecutor. I talked to the court administrator. I talked to the judge. I talked to our own attorney. And after all those discussions and a combination of their comments, I kind of learned that most courts in the state lose money. So it's just not our court that's losing money. So it really comes down to, in my mind, a matter of how much do you want to lose. It's kind of a lost leader. It's something that we did. So when you go back and you look at why did we even create a court in the first place, it was to provide convenience for our officers to have to show up for these infractions and for code violations and keeping it local. And I agree with what you said about the deputy prosecutor. And I know that when I suggested we make our hours the same as their hours, well, it still didn't benefit them because they were at the county level at the courthouse from 8 to 4. So, you know, nobody came right out and said yay or nay because that's the quality of the people that we're dealing with. They did say, we'll do whatever you guys decide. Well, my opinion now is that we keep it in place. I mean, it's something that's here. I think, as I said before, we need to look at a way to, there's value of having this here, and we need to look at restructuring it. And we haven't had those conversations. And in my conversations, I tried to take names out of the equation and look at it from a job description standpoint. And is it a full-time? Is it 2 part-times? Is it cross-training other people to do this? With COVID, we learned, certainly going to a sporting event, you don't pay cash anymore. You pay with credit cards or you pay online. So, you know, we've changed that way, but I think we need to sit down and figure out a way to keep this, but change maybe the way that we do business on a daily basis. So that's my opinion on it, and open for discussion. Well, and one last thing I did, it was just ironic. In the IBJ this week, the city of Lebanon is going to reestablish their town court. And the ironic thing about it was they closed it because it was losing money. But now they're reestablishing it and they have to go a year, just like we're going a year here. But what they found out though is with the ordinance violations, the ones that weren't being enforced, i.e. like a parking ticket, once the community caught draft of that, hey, they weren't being pursued, they stopped paying their tickets. So I think there's value, and here again is a community who abolished it back in 2014. I don't know why, but other than it was losing money.
Yeah, I know we've looked at this historically, and I agree that it is a numbers issue. And so if you look at it, the perspective of really what the cost is, if we're looking at $50,000 a year-ish was what we looked at, and you divide that by 12 months. And the issue for me is that we have court 1 day a month, 1 evening, and it's for a couple hours. So if we take $50,000, divide that by 12, divide that by 2 hours, it's $2,083 an hour that we're paying for that. And so from that perspective, I think you can apply logic or common sense and say, I mean, that's a good value. And if it's only a couple hours a month, I know our officers are currently going to Danville for misdemeanor and felony court too. So we've talked with the chiefs and looked at that, how much, headache will that be for them to travel for that. But it just seems like, that's a huge chunk of money that could be providing other services that are more beneficial to more people than just a handful of people that are going to be there for a few hours a month.
I know we asked this last time, but I kind of want to make sure and touch base on the Lebanon court reopening. We have the ability every 4 years, if need be, to go through this process essentially in reverse. Obviously, that would not be a good, we don't kind of want to be flipping back and forth on this. However, this isn't set in stone, and in perpetuity, the town of Avon could never have a court again.
Correct.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? If not, would anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that on ordinance 2022-36, abolishing the town court, that we proceed.
We have a first.
I'll second.
We have a first and a second. Julie, would you mind taking a roll call vote, please?
Steve Eisenbarth?
For.
Steve Eisenbarth?
For.
Sorry. Aaron Teveba?
For.
Greg Zuzen?
Against.
Robert Pope?
4.
Don Loudon?
4.
Next item on the agenda, final reading ordinance 2022-39, end of year reappropriation. Julie, are you speaking to this one?
Julie had an allergic reaction today, so I'll handle it for her, even though Julie did all the work for this. First of all, I think I say this every year. I know you guys get this paper in front of you that probably doesn't mean a lot to you, but this requires a lot of work and hours that Julie and Calvin have to put in to basically balance the books and get all of our books in a condition where they comply with the State Board of Accounts. So thank you to Julie and Calvin for their hard work on doing that. Again, the end of year reappropriation ordinance is to just correct those at the end of the year. We can't have negative in any funds, so we have to move money around to basically accommodate those expenses. And so that's kind of the report that you guys have in front of you as a result of Calvin and Julie's work. And happy to answer your questions.
Any questions for staff?
This handout that we received, does this tie back into this then?
That is the attachment, yes, that goes with that. Those are the moves that will be made if you approve this tonight.
Yeah, that's Exhibit A, Greg. And then the resolution that just authorizes the implementation of Exhibit A.
And just to be clear, a lot of those, and when you're looking through that, so in let's just take the police, for example, because they're an easy one. When they do their budget, they budget out overtime, they budget out different specialties, the K-9 guys and stuff like that. When we do payroll, we take it out of the one line. So all their money is sitting down here, and that's part of what this reappropriation is. We spent it in this budget line. We just need to move it because for their budget, they need to know what we're paying where. For mine, I just take it out of this one line. We're just moving it to where it needs to be to cover it.
Seeing no further questions, would anyone like to make a motion?
I move to approve ordinance 2022-39 as presented.
We have a first.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Julie, would you take a roll call vote, please?
Don Loudon,
4.
Greg Zuzen,
4.
Robert Pope,
4.
Steve Eisenbarth.
For.
For the last time, Aaron Teveba.
For.
Next item on the agenda, legal counsel report. Mr. Taylor?
I have nothing for the council. I thought I would just say to Aaron a couple things. One of the great rewards for public service is that at your last meeting, people get to talk about you. And so I'd be remiss if I didn't say we've enjoyed working with you. And, you know, Aaron is unique in a couple of ways. One, I've always appreciated you're really a fair guy. You know, you really want to be fair with people, but you also can be tough when the town council need to get tough. I mean, sometimes you just need to count on that, and you always had that as well, which I appreciate in my side of what the town does. Also, I admire your intolerance of mediocrity, and you have high expectations for yourself, and you bring that to your team, and that makes everyone around you better. And so that's, I think, a unique talent. And I think, if you can make the people around you better, what a great gift that you can give them. Sometimes they're not willing to make that journey with you, but I think that's a characteristic you have. And lastly, for anybody and anything you do, if you can leave it better, you found it, you should feel great. And I think you've heard tonight said several times, and I agree that it's better now than it was when you got here. And so you and everybody else, and even some of those, well, Marcus is here, but some people aren't even here who've helped make that possible. That's that's a great accomplishment. It's like steering a battleship. I imagine, the town's a big thing, and it's hard to get things to change and move and be adjusted, but you've had a really good ride and made great positive changes. So you should feel great about that. And I want to congratulate you on your service.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Next item, the second of 2 public comment opportunities. If you'd like to speak, please come forward to the microphone, state your name and address, and limit your time to 3 minutes.
Marcus Turner, 451 Autumn Springs Drive. Mr. Tivaba, congratulations on 2 terms, very well served. When you get up in a few minutes to leave that seat tonight, you can have some satisfaction knowing that you're leaving this place much better than you found it. I appreciate your friendship and your service. Well done, sir.
Seeing no one else coming forward, we'll close that section of public comment. Another opportunity for council comment.
I forgot to mention, because I was so focused on Aaron, that I wanted to thank our Parks Department, and it was a collaborative our collaborative event and effort the other day between the chamber, the township, and the town of Avon. So that was nice to see for the successful event of the tree lighting and the activities that went on before the tree lighting. And then also I attended the Avon High School DECA meeting last Saturday morning, early morning, to judge that competition. And it was just good to see what kind of young individuals, smart, talented, well-spoken individuals that we have attending our schools and representing us. I think they, after the last Saturday for the rehearsal or trial judging, they went on up to Minnesota for the district judging. So.
My last comment is, Aaron, we can't let you out of here that easily, so we do have some openings on the Plan Commission. So just tell us, our next meeting is on the 20th at 6:30 if you want to come and observe, so you're ready for your first meeting in January.
So I have a new boss now who's in the audience tonight, and she's advised me there's a year-long plan. I need a cooling down period to get caught up on life. So thanks, but no thanks.
And to your new boss, we appreciate the service he's given us. We thank you so much. We know it's not easy for a spouse and family to, see all this, but thank you for his service. Sincerely.
So I'm not real weepy, Aaron, so I'm going to try not to do it. After watching Dave Marguson cry earlier, it makes it a little difficult, but I never thought I'd see Dave cry. Aaron, I know everybody's going to say it, so I'm going to repeat some of the same things, but I guess to start, just over the last couple days, for those of you who know Aaron, it may not surprise you, and all of you may have got emails too, but Aaron emailed all my department heads and thanked them for their hard work. And that says a lot about Aaron's character and the kind of person he is. Not only that, but he sent an email to the entire staff and everybody that works here. And again, Aaron's leadership You guys talked about Bill Westfall and his willingness to teach us that. He's had an immense impact, not only on us as a staff, but as a culture here at the town. So thank you, Aaron, for that. I can't say enough to say that everybody else has said it here today too, that this place is better than when you got here. And I know you had some tough road to travel, and I appreciate, a lot of it. You stood by me, and your support and your willingness to let us do our jobs is hard to do. And I'm grateful for that. And I think you made me better at my job. And like Dan said, you're tough sometimes, but I appreciated that. And again, I think you made me a better person, a better person for the community. So thank you for that. I'll probably never be able to thank you enough. I know since you reached out to a lot of my staff, they may not be here, but we did get you something. This isn't a blip on what you've done for all of us, but at least it's something you can maybe sit at home. And again, thank you to your family, especially as staff. We recognize that all of you make a sacrifice being here and supporting the town, and what you're paid is nothing compared to what you give. So thank you for doing that as well.
No, you may be seated. Thank you. Man, I don't know where to begin. We should be out of here by 9 though. About 12 years ago, I met Aaron for the first time over at I think it was Wings, Etc. And these guys were like, hey, we got to meet this new council member. He's an IMPD cop. And if you know anything about cops are very protective about where top stuff. And here we had an IMPD guy in council. So obviously the nerves about the department like these, got a chief for the councilman's seat, all those different things. And it was a pretty challenging time at the department. And we met with him, it was exactly the opposite. Aaron sat there and he listened to all of our griefs, our grievances, and he didn't just listen and give false hope or anything like that. He started coming up with ideas immediately on what we could do to help change the culture, change the leadership, and send us in a new positive direction. From that day forward, it was constantly phone calls. It was different meetings. It was our annual Christmas meeting where we talk about all the things we did right every year and the things that we did wrong, so that we could work on them for the next year. You were instrumental in working with Marcus Turner as well to help us get things turned around in a really good direction for our department. The leadership training that you brought to not only the police department, but it's grown all the way into the rest of the town staff. And it has truly changed our culture. It's made our police department better. It's made our community better. A lot of that training is applicable in life in general. It's made my family and my relationship with my family members better. You've made our entire community better for your service. And you always talked about your war room or the battle room. That's where a lot of phone calls took place to solve the world's problems. Sometimes we didn't solve them. But we did get you a little something to hang up in your war room there to remember this. Just a little plaque that we'd like to present to you. If you guys want to say anything, you want to come up here and receive those? The least you could do.
That's great.
just noticed y'all dress alike. All the police.
Yeah,
dress
to some
alike.
extent, to some extent. I feel obligated to say something nice, so I figured I'd come over here and say this. Honestly, it's being in administration now for 9+ years. It was not a position that I ever expected myself to be in. And 2012, 2013, start of 2014 was a very dark time for our agency. We were facing a lot of internal problems. We were facing a lot of community support dilemmas, and we were really struggling to find our way as our path. And I can tell you that for me personally, knowing that our administration, our agency, and our community has the support of our council means more than you'll ever know. And Aaron and I have certainly had our agreements and our disagreements, and they've always resolved themselves with the character of Aaron and having a dialogue of understanding. And so I appreciate everything you've done for us. I appreciate every vote that you've made in our favor. I don't think you voted against anything. I've been keeping track. We appreciate that. But just, a lot of little things you miss about the process. And then one of the things I was just thinking about as I was standing back here listening to the chief talk was your socks. We would have an occasional text thread before a meeting where we were supposed to guess what kind of character he had on his socks. And so just sitting here today and noticing the bright red socks, it just kind of makes me smile a little bit. But I just want you to know how much I appreciate you. I want your family to know how much I appreciate the sacrifice and time from your family. I know it's a big commitment with very little compensation, reward, and recognition. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. I look forward to staying in touch with you. Thanks, Aaron.
Aaron, regrettably and enviously, I haven't gotten to know you as well as Sean and Brian have, and that's because of just the timing of things. But I want to give you a very personal thank you. The confidence and bravery that you and Marcus both displayed early on, I can say 100% confidently that it's the reason I'm still here. I don't think if you guys hadn't had that bravery and made those changes, I would have moved on. And what all these people are saying about the changes that you were a part of and helped to make, I can attest to personally. Just the decisions that you have made that I have seen have always been for the positive and always been carefully made. So thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I know we're going to miss you. We want all the best for you. Everyone has been repeating a lot of the same things, so I feel a little bit bad for that. But I definitely want to say to your family, we all know the time it takes away, and I'm sure there's times where you would have liked to have had Dad home or him home to help with things, and he had other obligations and stuff was left to you, or you were made to wait until Dad was available. And thank you for sharing him with us. So appreciate everything.
Feel like we need some tissues. Any other council calendar?
Jared wanted me to remind you that we'd like to do a few photos, so don't run out too fast. If you wouldn't mind leaving him for a little bit longer so we can snap some photos before he goes. Last meeting for the year, so congratulations. We survived 2022 and onward to 23. Our next meeting is January 12th. We do have a town council work session at 5:30, regular town council meeting at 7 p.m. I would ask all of you, as you know, we've been going through a transition to Office 365. So you guys we have to do audits on your computers, and we need to update them to Office 365. I know some of you had problems with them this week trying to email in stuff. So we'll get all those corrected when you guys turn them in. So please leave me with your tablets tonight so we can get them updated. We'll get them back to you as soon as possible. That's all I've got.
Meeting adjourned.